It is June the 20th, 2025. I'm out here on what's known as Deer Island. Originally it was an island in the Boston Harbor. It has been in modern times joined to the mainland by causeways, etc. Deer Island was a place used to build a hospital slash detention center slash quarantine facility to house a great number of the approximately 45,000 Irish people that came to Boston in the years approximately 1845 to 1851. That had a very significant impact on the city of Boston, of course, because it increased the population from 105,000 to 150,000 in the space of 5 years, and it indirectly led to the filling in of the Back Bay. Now, those Irish people that came out here, the Irish famine produced a casualty rate of 1.5 million people dead and approximately 2 million people immigrated. And as I said, 45,000 of those people would have came here to, or ended up at least, in Boston. There was up to supposedly 5,000 Irish people that would have been housed here in quarantine because their health was so poor that they had to be quarantined for a while before they'd be let into the general population. Of those 5,000, an estimated 850 Irish people died while in quarantine here, and they would be buried on this little area here of Deer Island. Many years passed, of course. In 1990, here in Boston, we were cleaning up the Boston Harbor area and building facilities out here for sanitation and water treatment plants and whatnot. In the course of that construction, bones were discovered, and initially it was thought that these bones belonged to Native Americans who had a similar situation here almost 200 years before that I will go into in a moment. But on DNA testing, etc., it was discovered that these were Irish people, and with more research then the full story came out. Obviously, a lot of Irish people here at that time would have felt it fitting that a memorial would be built to their memory, because they had in effect been forgotten. Some very significant fellows here in Boston, two of them come to my mind immediately: Peter O'Malley, a Galway man, and another Galway man too called Johnny Flaherty. I would have known Johnny Flaherty here, of course. He was an important pub owner. He owned a place in Cambridge called the Druid Pub. Very, very popular. Supposedly had the second best pint of Guinness in the greater Boston area. And needless to say, everybody knows where the best pint of Guinness was. If you don't know, you can Google it. Anyway, they and others spent many years trying to get recognition, and sure enough, in the follow, it took decades. But in 2019, they eventually were successful in having this cross erected here. They got great assistance from some brothers down from the county of Sligo, who are a notable success story here in Boston, Massachusetts, and now nationwide indeed, called the Feeney Brothers. They have a very successful construction company, etc., doing excavation and doing pipe work and we're talking billion-dollar companies here. They, of course, they gave their time and their efforts and their workers and employees, etc., and they erected this cross. This cross here is 16 feet high. The fellow that donated the work on the cross is from down in Pennsylvania. His name is Rob Flynn, and he will have done that cross, and it was erected here. Now, before I go over and take a closer look at the cross, because the wind here is very strong and it's probably hard to hear me, going back almost 200 years before that, in a situation known as King Philip's War in the year 1676 mainly, the Wampanoag natives were wiped out in effect in a very brutal war by the Massachusetts Bay Colony, with the assistance, of course, of Plymouth Colony and also of people from Connecticut and what became Rhode Island, or what was Rhode Island at that stage. They were eliminated. Now, many of those Native Americans by that time had converted to Christianity. They had been educated. They were referred to as praying Indians. They were treated almost as well as an Englishman was treated here. They were allowed to set up their own towns, and things were almost ideal for those people at that stage. However, when the war broke out, the Puritans at the end of the day could not trust the natives, and they will round them up and bring them to detentions out here on Deer Island. And a great multitude of these people put into detention would have died out here on Deer Island, and that is why initially the people thought that the bones were actually from Native Americans. Now, these Native Americans were not deliberately killed, but when you confine people to a camp with very poor sanitation, it will of course undoubtedly lead to diseases like dysentery, known then as the bloody flux, and that was led to widespread death, and that was a very sad situation for the Native Americans indeed. Now I'm going to walk over here to just get a closer look at this cross and point out that Boston, which at that time would be a town, is just across the water. So bear in mind that these thousands of Irish people confined to this island, they came all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, and they could see where they wished to be just across the water. They came so far, but yet died here at this spot, and they're buried in a mass grave at this spot. So that, of course, today is the city of Boston. That's Logan Airport right there in front of you. That is south towards Quincy and Weymouth. Now check out the bottom of this cross here. It says donated by Rob Flynn. It's referred to as the Flynn Stone. That is his name of his company. He's down in Pennsylvania, 2019. That is a beautiful inscription there. It's hard to read it perhaps with the sun in and around. From dream of a better life to the shores of our destiny was worth the sacrifice for those that follow. So what it says there is, even though these people lost their lives,